Luke 8. This came to me this morning, and I thought it was a good idea. Luke chapter 8, beginning in verse 40. And the question, and what I want us to understand is, who gets healed? How are we healed? Who gets healed? Because we do see people get healed. We see Christian, Muslim, Jews, people get healed.
Get what?
Healed.
Healed.
But does it honor God? So we got some people coming up. This is me treading water. Luke chapter 8, beginning in verse 40 to 56, I'll read. Now when Jesus returned, the crowd welcomed him, for they were all waiting for him. And there came a man named Jairus, who was a ruler of the synagogue, and falling at his feet, he implored him to come to his house, for he had only a daughter about 12 years of age, and she was dying. And as Jesus went, the people pressed around him, and there was a woman who had had a discharge of blood for 12 years. And though she spent all her living on physicians, she could not be healed by anyone. She came up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment, and immediately her discharge of blood ceased. And Jesus said, "Who was it that touched me?" When all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the crowd surround you and are pressing in on you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me, for I perceive that power has gone out from me." Hey, we're reading, it's not in your notes, I'm in Luke chapter 8. I just read verse 46, heading to 56. But Jesus said, "Someone touched me, for I perceive that power has gone out from me." And when the woman saw that she was not hidden, she came trembling and falling down before him, declared in the presence of all the people why she had touched him and how she had been immediately healed. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace."
Wow.
Glory.
I have a flash.
Good morning. How y'all doing?
Good.
Good to see you.
Thanks, sir.
You're welcome.
Well, seriously, so.
What's that, Sam?
I was going to say, when we read that, I thought, please don't think fully of me, but you remember Oral Roberts. Okay. Well, those people, if you watch the show, they were healed. He prayed for them to be healed. Okay. Maybe they attributed it to him, but with their faith, they thought they would be healed. It seemed to be a parallel.
By faith. What's this teacher right here? What healed the hemorrhagic woman?
For faith.
Her faith.
Right.
So hold that thought. Then that must be true. Must be true. It's not in your notes, but I'm reading from Luke chapter 8. And I'm getting ready to begin with verse 49. I've been reading for a bit, but we're going to keep going through verse 49 to 56. While he was still speaking, someone from the ruler's house came and said, "Your daughter is dead. Do not trouble the teacher anymore." Because if you remember the passage before this section was the Jairus and his daughter was sick and all that. "Don't come. She's dead. Do not trouble the teacher anymore." But Jesus, on hearing this, answered him, "Do not fear. Only believe and she will be well." And when he came to the house, he allowed no one to enter with him except Peter and John and James and the father and mother of the child. And all were weeping and mourning for her. But he said, "Do not weep, for she is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him, knowing that she was dead. But taking her by the hand, he called, saying, "Child, arise." And her spirit returned, and she got up at once. And he directed that something should be given to her to eat. And her parents were amazed, but he charged them to tell no one what had happened. Then Luke chapter 9, 1 verse 43. 42 and 43. This is the madman, demon-possessed, I believe, is where we're at here. A boy with an unclean spirit. It's that story. In 42 and 43, while he was coming, the demon threw him to the ground and convulsed him, but Jesus rebuked the unclean spirit and healed the boy, and gave him back to his father, and all were astonished at the majesty of God. Who got the glory there? God got the glory. God got the glory in that healing. It's only God who ordains who gets healed. Healing occurs in anybody. A cut on your finger. A cut on your finger will get better if God allows it. Or else he could not be God. Not a sparrow falls to the ground, but the Lord knows it. He could not and would not be God if he did not also be sovereign over that cut on your finger and the healing that goes on in your finger. You might want to challenge that. God is sovereign. He has to be sovereign or he's not God. Only God ordains healing. It's never random. And we saw in this passage how who Jesus healed, he attributed it to their faith. Faith in who?
God.
In God. The woman believed Jesus could do it. She believed if I just touched the cloak, she'd get healed. And Jairus went to the Lord. Says, why? Because he believed Jesus could do it. The woman had been to all manner of physicians, and they couldn't heal her. Which is, that happens to us. We go to a bunch of physicians and we don't get healed. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we do go to physicians, do we not, Sam? And they say, here's a little salve to go on your finger, and it gets better. Right? Wow, my finger's better. Why did it get better? God allowed it to heal. Right? Healing is by faith, and healing glorifies God. Even the unbeliever gets healed. Even the unbeliever gets cancer, a cut on her finger, depression, and even an unbeliever gets healed. Who heals the unbeliever? God. Or he can't be God. Thank you, Dottie. God's common grace. Right? But then that leads to the question, but Rick, I have faith, but I'm not getting better. I am still sick.
Who is your faith in? What is your faith in?
Well, kind of goes to that question. What do you believe in? But then again, you could say, Blair, I have great faith. I am praying every day. I am praying I get over this cancer. And the doctor's saying, it's bad. I don't get better. How does that glorify God? I'm sick. I'm sick unto death. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. How does that glorify God? Am I dying?
Well, put that aside. I'm not getting healed, but I'm not getting healed because that's God's will in my life at that point.
Okay. Yeah.
And if I believe God's will rules, then I'm not going to be teed off that I'm not getting healed even though I'm praying for it. If I'm praying for it, if it's his will, I'll get healed.
Okay. Real good. God's still sovereign, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
And if I'm not getting better, that must be his will for my life. Well, isn't that arbitrary? God's being mean to me. He's allowing me to be sick with cancer and it hurts and I've got to go to palliative care and get filled with all this stuff. It's not fair. What you got?
I was going to say, even if you got, after you experience the ultimate healing.
That would glorify God. You're going to be glorifying God going, wow, look at me.
It may be that person in the sick bed reaches people around them. It may be when the word is preached at his funeral that
we do not know.
that we know.
We do not. But we can have faith. The same faith that when we pray before we go to the doctor's office, that doctor be wise and be all up on his training, and God, if it's your will, I would be healed by you using this physician to treat me well. You know, it's always God who heals you. But I think we lose that. I think we lose that sense of I'm only healed when God allows it, and if I suffer, if I don't get healed, it's still our sovereign God who's allowing that to happen. 1 Peter 1, 7 through 9, very familiar verse. very familiar. I will come back to it and come back to it a lot in this little series. But let's stick with it. 1 Peter 1, 7 through 9. Just one. Blair's probably got it memorized. So that the tested genuineness of your faith, more precious than gold that perishes, though it is tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Our suffering, even if we're not healed, our remaining sick and being sick as a Christian, and only as a Christian, will it honor God. 1 Peter 4, verse 12. Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you as though something strange were happening to you, but rejoice insofar as you share Christ's sufferings, that you may also rejoice and be glad when his glory is revealed. When a Christian suffers and is not healed or healed, it always and cannot be any other way, but that will bring glory to God. When for the unbeliever, I wonder, who gives God no credit for their healing, no thought in their mind about God healing them, I wonder if God gets the glory there. I wonder if God gets the glory when an unbeliever is healed. They know nothing of God. They're dead in a sense, in a spiritual sense. But doesn't God get the glory if anybody's healed? If it rains on that side of the street and not on that side of the street, God gets the glory no matter what.
The book of Romans says that behold the goodness and severity of God.
Yeah.
So sometimes God shows his power and his severity when bringing judgment, but also he does that in his goodness too.
Thank you, Bob. Our God is good. Okay, I just want to see that dog will hunt, and that we bear it in mind, hey Simeon, that we bear it in mind that how healing occurs. Healing always occurs because God ordains it. Last week, I ended rather abruptly, it was okay, in a statement that I said these words, I think. I said, some people will take medicine, pharmaceuticals, meds to treat depression. And then I said, well, that's okay. And I don't know if it seemed demeaning or flip or I'm not sure how it was taken, but I don't want to just gloss over that point because many people do, out of their unrelenting, chronic, horrible depression, go to their physician and say, I'm not eating, I'm not sleeping, I cry all the time, I don't go out, blah, 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 all these symptoms. And the physician will very rapidly prescribe a pill. That's what they do. If you go to a physician and say, I cut my finger, he's going to give you something. You're not going to walk out of there empty-handed. That's just not the way they are. Okay? And he'll prescribe probably an SSRI. And I want to talk to you why the doctor will do that. And why it's, and it's perfect to me, why it's acceptable. If you find it necessary to go and get an SSRI, get a drug prescribed to address depression or even anxiety. Let me just address one. Serotonin. Anybody here serotonin? We've heard of serotonin. Yes. Serotonin? I know Simeon has. Serotonin. What do you know about serotonin?
You produce that in your brain. Right?
Yeah, it's floating around in your brain. Right?
If you don't have enough, you got a problem. Right?
What kind of problem you have if you don't have enough?
You feel bad.
Feel bad? Well, case closed. We're done with this section. We're done.
Zero.
Huh?
I have zero, sir. Because life is so tedious.
Oh. So you said that's why you must have zero serotonin?
Yeah, what keeps me going is that I cling to the fact that this must be God's will in my life. Nothing works anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in pain most of the time. I don't take anything for the pain. But why? I'm here for a reason.
Sure.
The phone rings and there's somebody to help. That takes my mind off things. I go help somebody.
Tedious is the word you used. And I'm sure for you it feels that way, that you don't feel well and every day seems like the one before. And there is a reason for your suffering. For you to glorify God in your suffering. And that's hard. That just rolled off my lips. That is hard.
Well, I feel good when I help somebody.
But what did the disciples ask for when they were faced with something they could do? Father, increase our faith. Yeah, prayer, man. Let me get on to serotonin, because I want to get to causes, which is one of them is what you talked about. Causes. Serotonin regulates our mood. The more serotonin floating around in your brain, the better. Serotonin's a neurotransmitter. It's like a little messenger. Floats around the brain. There are, in your brain, I read once somewhere, there's trillions of neurotransmitters, receptors and transmitters in your brain. Trillion's a big number. But so you've got these, think of this as wiring to different parts of your brain. And this is a neurotransmitter, because you've got to have a transmitter and you've got to have a receptor. And there's serotonin coming out of here. Ooh, and you got bazillions of these things. Okay? And these things are just cranking out serotonin, and it's floating around out here, and a little serotonin neurotransmitter makes it to that one, and this goes to another part of the brain, and that happens over and over a bazillion times, and your mood's better. You're happy. You're free of stress. More the better. But occasionally, and quite often, so the science says, these little serotonin boogers right there go back to where they came from. They get sucked back up. Yeah. And it's happened a lot because you got a bazillion of these. And you got all the serotonin floating through there, and one might make it through, but a couple or 3 or 50 or a zillion gets sucked back up. So now there's not as much serotonin in the pipeline to make you feel well. All right? Where does serotonin come from? Your body makes it. It begins as tryptophan, and then something happens to tryptophan, and it becomes serotonin. That wasn't on my test. I didn't worry about it. So, what is the doctor trying to address then when he prescribes a medicine for depression? He's going to address this serotonin, and he prescribes something called an usually, there's old school stuff, but these days they're all SSRIs, Prozac, Lexapro, Zoloft, all those. SSRI, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. It keeps the serotonin from going back the other way, so there's more available for all of these guys to get the message. Be happy, be well. All right? Now let me tell you, it works. Generally, it works. Depression is not completely understood by physicians. We only know what we see, physicians would say, because they're not looking in here. Okay? So science would say they don't completely understand depression. They cannot. This is amazing. Here it comes. They are unable to measure serotonin. They just know the cause and effect. They know through brain scans and these other things they do, this gee-whiz stuff, that serotonin lights up certain parts of the brain, and I guess would be the way I'd say it. And so they can see the evidence of there's lots of serotonin. There must be a lot of serotonin because this person's happy and well-adjusted. And these parts of the brain are working, so there must be a lot of serotonin there. And then this sad person comes in, different parts of their brain lit up, they must have less serotonin. And when we give them this pill, it goes the other direction. So it must be doing something, and they figure it out. But it's interesting that they can't measure, at least the reading I've done recently, they can't measure how much serotonin's there. That's why the doctor, if he prescribes Lexapro and it doesn't work, he'll give you another one. He's just trying to find the right molecule that will address this. Right there. But they're going after the serotonin. SSRIs. So they do work. You know, and the reason I say, okay, folks who are just chronically and deeply depressed to the point of suicide, this can, I can't help but dig it. You know? Because despite all the serotonin, we could address this, a doctor can, but a doctor's not going to address what we're going to talk about today. Where's all the underlying causes, thinking, what's going on with the individual's life down here that led to the depressive thinking and the mood change. He's going to address this, but nothing ever happens down here to figure out what's going on with the individual. Does that make sense? That's the science. There's also a class of drugs called benzodiazepines that are frequently prescribed for depression. Probably shouldn't be. Benzodiazepines, those are your Valium, Xanaxes, Ativan. Those work totally different. Whereas SSRIs are not addictive in the true sense. Benzodiazepines can be very addictive. They're a sedative. They stimulate another neurotransmitter that floats around there called GABA. GABA inhibits it kind of slows the brain down. So all that neuronal activity going on up there slows down, anxiety goes away, mood goes up. So that's kind of what they're addressing there. Benzodiazepines treat seizures real well, and alcohol withdrawal real well. And they're also easily abused, very effective. Also, they're very effective for panic disorder. So, more effective than an SSRI. So there's the science. And that's why I said some folks will go and get medicine. And they probably should, my humble opinion, when their depression is so chronic, so deep, so bad that you can't get through. They can't get through. That's my 2 cents on it. So let's talk about the causes today. Okay? Let's talk about the causes of depression. Bob, thank you for bringing this over. I know you did. Didn't you? Didn't you do it? I did.
Rick, the sad thing about that is that so many people will go get the medication to help, but then they won't deal with the underlying issue.
No, they won't.
Because there's another cost involved with that, and time involved, and it just kind of goes on and on.
What do you mean? The time goes on, they never get better?
No, I mean, it just goes on and on. The excuses for that.
Oh, yeah. And they never get better.
There's cost involved, there's time involved. Do I like this therapist? You know that whole thing.
It just goes on and on.
So they just
take the pill,
yeah,
and I can get on with my life. Yeah, I'll take it forever, and then, but the underlying issue keeps going. An alcoholic or somebody abusing drugs, eventually you will get depressed. And they'll go in and lie to their doctor. Oh, I don't drink too much. I only drink once a week, or I don't drink at all, doctor. And get an antidepressant and pursue that, and never address what's really going on underneath their alcoholism or their alcohol abuse, whatever else. And that brings a whole host of problems. So you're right. Or we're going to get to the causes. And that's where I wanted to leave that with is, that's where science fails. It doesn't. And where I think the church has got a great answer to address those underlying issues. Let's look at how depression, the causes of depression. And we'll be quick. Depression is suffering. I think I couched depression, back to your handout now, how depression is suffering and is not something totally different from the regular trials and tribulations that we endure. as Christians, depression is one of the trials and tribulations that God may give us to endure in the course of our life. Depression is suffering. Though you don't find the word depressed like we mean it in the Bible, there are a lot of references to depression. So if we could quickly look at some verses. First of all, I need 1 Samuel 16, 14, and 23. And then somebody will go get that. And somebody else, 1 Samuel 28, 5, 21 through 25. Are those on your handouts?
Yes.
Here you go, brother. You're welcome. Briefly, 1 Samuel 16, 14, and 23. Somebody? Anybody? I want to move.
Now the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and a harmful spirit from the Lord tormented him. And whenever the harmful spirit from God was upon Saul, David took the lyre and played it with his hands, so that Saul was refreshed and was well, and the harmful spirit departed from him.
Okay. 1 Samuel 28, 5, 21 through 25, beginning with verse 5. 1 Samuel 28, verse 5.
When Saul saw the army of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart trembled greatly. Is that what
Yes, verse 5, and then skip ahead to 21 through 25.
Verse 1 through 25. And the woman came to Saul, and when she saw that he was terrified, she said to him, Behold, your servant has obeyed you. I have taken my life in my hand, and have listened to what you have to say to me.
Yeah.
25. Okay. Now therefore you also obey your servant. Let me set a morsel of bread before you and eat, that you may have strength when you go on your way. He refused and said, I will not eat. But his servants together with the woman urged him, and he listened to their words. So he arose from the earth and sat on the bed. Now the woman had a fattened calf in the house, and she quickly killed it, and she took flour and kneaded it and baked unleavened bread of it. And she put it before Saul and the servants, and they ate. Then he rose and went away that night.
Thanks, Eve. You get a sense there. Saul, for a lot of reasons that I think will become evident to us later, has become terrified of the spirit that God has allowed to torment him, and he trembles, he's impulsive. We can see through the course of his life how he really just moves to one bad idea to another, and then he goes to see that's the story about the witch in Endor, right, I think, and he does all that, and he's not eating, and then when he eats he feels better. He's depressed. Jeremiah. Let's go to Lamentation 3. Lamentation chapter 3. I'm going to skip through some verses there. Somebody there? Lamentation?
Which one do you want?
Just read 2. Can you go 2 through 17? It's a long stretch.
Yeah. We begin to say, I am a man who has seen affliction under the rod of his wrath. He has driven me and brought me into darkness without any light. Surely against me he turns his hand again and again the whole day long. He has made my flesh and my skin waste away. He has broken my bones. He has besieged and enveloped me with bitterness and tribulation. He has made me dwell in darkness like the dead long ago. He has walled me up so that I cannot escape. He has made my chains heavy. Though I call and cry for help, he shuts out my prayer. He has blocked my ways with blocks of stone. He has made my paths crooked. He is a bear lying in wait for me, and a lion in hiding. He turned aside my steps and tore me in pieces. He has made me desolate. He bent his bow and set me as a target for his arrow. He drove me into my kidneys, and the arrows of his quiver. I have become the laughing stock of all the peoples, the object of their taunts all day long. He has filled me with bitterness and has sated me with wormwood. He has made my teeth grind on gravel and made me cower in ashes. My soul is bereft of peace. I have forgotten what happiness is.
Can you get a sense of Jeremiah's sadness and depression there in that passage? Surely against me he turns his hand. And then a little farther down. He has made me dwell in darkness like the dead. Though I call and cry for help, he shuts out my prayer. He turned aside my steps. I've become a laughing stock, the object of taunts. He's filled me with bitterness. Just this, for good reason. We know the story. We know what Israel's is going through. Jerusalem's going through. We get that, but look at, as he's led by the Holy Spirit, of course, the message here. He is down. His mood is down. And it's obvious here. He's sad. He's overwhelmed with sadness. One more, Jonah. Jonah had it going on. There's also Elijah, but I'm going to move us ahead a little bit. Jonah 4, verse 8. Here's where Jonah's pouting.
I got it.
Go ahead.
When the sun rose, God appointed a scorching east wind, and the sun beat down on the head of Jonah so that he was faint. And he asked that he might die, and said, "It is better for me to die than to live."
Jonah's so upset. He's so upset. I mean, he really is. He's upset. We know the story. He's upset because he wanted God to destroy the Assyrians, and it wasn't going to happen. God is actually going to save the Assyrians, and it made him sad to the point where he wished for death. I'd rather die than see this happen. It's not rational. No. If we widen our search, those are folks who are experiencing depression, and we can see it in the narratives there. If we widen the search, we soon see how depression fits with all the other manners of suffering, pain, hardship, trials, tribulation, despair, burden, dread, hopelessness. The Bible is full of examples of individuals who are depressed and suffering in their depression. So what are the causes? Let's take a biblical look. We saw the science look at what they say, here's what's causing depression. Let's take a biblical approach to what's causing depression. And let's begin with, first, other people. Other people are a source or a cause for depression. In Psalm 55, please. Psalm 55. Bob just preached a very big sermon on this a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Because I was thinking about Bob when he set me up. When was it? 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago, yeah. I remember. Yeah, it's for me. Thank you, Bob. I was taking your ideas. Psalm 55. I'm going to cherry pick some verses here. Verse 5. Fear and trembling come upon me, and horror overwhelms me. 12 through 13. For it is not an enemy who taunts me that I could bear it. It is not an adversary who deals insolently with me. Then I could hide from him. But it is you, a man, my equal, my companion, my familiar friend. People let us down. People hurt us. They say mean things to us. People will abuse other people. They will do horrible things to each other. I think you know what I mean there. People lie to one another. They oppress one another. They leave us. They make commitments they don't keep. They are selfish. Or they betray us. It's innumerable, all the ways that people can let us down. And for some, it just rolls off the back. There, I've been hurt again. I can deal with that. I understand that we're fallen individuals. We sin and we move on. But some folks, this hurt that comes, like the writer here in Psalms, a friend of mine has hurt me. And given maybe reasons of their upbringing or whatever, it festers. And it turns into depressive thoughts that are unrelenting. And it's kind of like a waterfall, a slow waterfall. It just keeps building and building and building and won't go away. Other people. The next cause of suffering. Us. Us. Other people are a cause for suffering. Sometimes we cause our own suffering. 2 Samuel 12, verses 15 through 18. Somebody can sword drill. 2 Samuel 12. 2 Samuel 12, 15 through 18.
You read?
Go ahead.
And Nathan departed unto his house, and the Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife bare unto David, and it was very sick. David therefore besought God for the child, and David fasted and went in and lay all night upon the earth. And the elders of his house arose and went to him to raise him up from the earth, but he would not, neither did he eat bread with them.
Okay. David's own sin caused that sequence of events where we see here he was depressed. He wouldn't eat. He wouldn't sleep. He was fasting to pray, but there's also that sense where he was overwhelmed with sadness. Our rage at politics, our rage at how people treat each other, our rage at how our boss treats us. Instead of it being, well, that's inconvenient, for some folks it's a rage. Yeah, that's really hot. It's this rage at other people, this rage that causes me to leave my wife, this rage that causes me to strike someone, this rage that causes me to speed down Highway 19. Rage. Whose rage is it? It's my sin, isn't it? It's not my upbringing. It's not anything, but my rage is causing me to sin, hurt other people, damages relationships, gets me fired. Who knows how that goes? Or I get so mad, I have to drink to calm back down, or I have to go sleep, or I have to not go home. Just any manner of things, because I can't stand the way I feel. People steal. People go to jail. Let me tell you, jail's not cool. You don't want to go to jail. I don't know. I don't need to know if you've been to jail. But you don't want to go. It will make you sad. It will make you sad a lot. And more than that, what you've done will weigh on you, particularly for the Christian, because we've disappointed our Savior with our sin. We've disappointed Him. Some of us will abuse food or be lazy, shirk our responsibilities. Some of us will believe Satan's lies. Some of us, when we are trying to sort an issue out and Satan says, you deserve better. You deserve better than what you're getting from your boss. We'll go in there and give him a what for? Because I feel better now. And there's lots of other lies, Satan. And I thought it worthwhile, maybe it's another Sunday school class, about Satan. Satan, what's the Bible say about Satan?
Disguises himself as an angel of light.
Okay, there's one.
He's a deceiver of the brother.
He's deceiver of the brethren.
He walks to and fro about the earth to devour.
Is Satan a myth? No. Is Satan some kind of Christian hootie-ha stuff that's just not true? No. Satan is out there to divert our attention away from the cross and to make us look inside. Make us look at ourselves. I deserve better. So we can often be the source with our own behavior and our own sin, believing Satan's lies. Another source of depression, another cause, is our bodies. Sam? Our bodies. Our bodies are fallible. Because of the fall, because we are but flesh, we get sick. Our bones ache. We get cancer. Or we get some wasting disease where we waste away. Our bodies get old. Our bodies don't work like they used to. Medicines The doctor means well and he gives us a medicine and it fixes that, but it makes something else worse. And if after a while all that just becomes a heaviness, becomes a, what was that word earlier today? What was that word you used?
Tedious.
Tedious, thank you. Tedious. Yet again, my ankles hurt when I get out of bed. Yet again, fill in the blank. And I don't feel well. For some, the cure is as bad as the disease. Now, speaking of cancer here, some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. You have a cancer, the doctor treats it, and the medicine makes you feel horrible. The medicine it makes you not want to get out of bed. And then you can't eat. You can't sleep. And you're like, oh Lord, I can't make it another day. And you're just trying to hang on for your loved ones. You know, and it gets hard and tedious. Job 3, 23 through 26. Job 3, 23 through 26.
Why is life given to a man who is saving, and whom God has edged in? For my sighing comes before I eat, and my groanings pour out like water. For the thing I greatly feared has come upon me, and what I dreaded has happened to me.
That passage right there follows where Job had been stricken so hard by Satan. He was scraping the skin off, the sores off with a scraping tool. That's how sick he was. And then the fourth reason we'll go over today, the guy we were just talking about, Satan. Satan lies to us. For expediency's sake, because we're already over time, Satan lies to us. And if you would read Job 1 through 2, it's God allows, but God doesn't do it. God allows Satan to do all manner of things to Job. Satan controlled the weather. He brought that big wind on the children in that tent, I think it was, right? Satan is the one who struck him. Satan's the one who lied to him. And we know how that story unfolds. Satan generally works upon us by causing doubt about God and God's promises. Is that not how he deceived Eve? I started thinking about that, Eve. It's like, oh man, how do I phrase that? But is that not what Adam's wife? Is that not how he did that? Did God really say? Right? Satan is very active. He's active before we get depressed, just lying to us. The big one, because of me and my bad heart, you deserve better. That's not fair. It's not fair to feel the way you feel. It's not fair about the way this is going with the kids. Where does that come from? Where? Tell me a page, a book where it says I deserve something. God means things for good and God blesses us, but I don't deserve it. And that's the beauty of it. I don't deserve it. Right? But Satan would have you believe God owes you. God owes you, Rick. And then I believe it, I buy into it. I'm not getting what's owed to me. And after depression sets in, Satan's very active in our life. In how we think about things going on in our life, the depressive thoughts, distorted thoughts. It's quite common for us to question God's goodness towards us when all we feel is gloom, tediousness, our body aches, we cry, we're not eating, we're not sleeping, God's holding something back from me. Yet God is sovereign, and we must remember that when we become depressed, God, for some reason, unbeknownst to us yet, except that it's for His glory, has allowed it to happen. So let's wrap it up here. Hosea chapter 7. That's a hard one. Hosea 7, and then we're going to wrap it up. Sam, I can't manage my time very well.
You can do anything in the world. You can't.
I can't.
You buy anything.
Verse 14, Hosea 7:14, please.
And they have not cried unto me with their heart when they howl upon their beds. They assemble themselves for corn and wine, and they rebel against me. Sorry, that's the KJV.
That's all right. Where's the first part again? I just sort of drives the point on. Just read it again.
They have not cried unto me with their hearts.
In our depression, the first step in addressing whatever the cause for our depression is to turn to God. Despite the idea, despite Satan's lies, despite our thinking that God doesn't care, God doesn't know, God won't fix this, I don't deserve it. Despite the inclination, we need to turn to God. Because God is sovereign. And the very thing we talked about at the beginning of this 45 minutes was that healing is always found in God. And that's where we turn. That's the very first step that we will learn. Is despite the inclination, we must turn to God. All right. Next week we talk about, I believe it's about our heart.